Okay, welcome everyone. We're still seeing the number of attendees being connected, which is rising quickly. This is Lorenz from UNEP speaking. And while the counter is still going up, I'll just pause for a second, saying good evening, everybody, particularly those of you that are in the East. Good night, really, for, for those connecting from New Zealand, Australia, and Japan. The rest of Asia as well, good evening. We have many of us in Europe and Africa, so good afternoon for you and good morning, Americas. I guess we can get started. It's mostly time, and for the time being, we have, well, the number of attendees is still going up, but we'll need to get started. Okay, so again, welcome everybody. Welcome to the launch of the Global LCA Data Access Network, GLAD for short. It's a big pleasure to have so many of you today. The interest in this webinar has been amazing, and we're really humbled by that. Let me first introduce myself very briefly. My name is Lorenz Milay Canals, and I lead the work on lifecycle approaches in the UN Environment Program. Actually, I should turn on my camera as well. Forgot about that. So hello again. And I was saying I lead the work on lifecycle approaches in the UNEP, in UN Environment Program. Today, I will be moderating this session, and I will guide you and some truly outstanding speakers that we have today in the launch of the Global LCA Data Access Network. So these are the results of a fantastic coalition of many stakeholders around the world, a team, a really nice team, many of whom you will hear today, that have been working hard in the last years to bring you the result that is delivering an enhanced accessibility and interoperability to LCA datasets and databases all over the world. So first, I want to start by thanking this amazing team and the multiple stakeholders that have been making this possible. First, and then after this initial thank and welcome, let me move on one slide just to see who is here today. That was me. Who is here today? These are the people that have registered. So this is the registrations from the webinar. So as you see, there's certainly a lot of us in Europe, but certainly also the Americas and Asia. It's great also to see that there is a very nice gender balance in the audience. So anyway, all these bubbles will show you that the interest for GLAD has been truly amazing. Welcoming still a lot of the participants that are just joining. The counter still going up. We're at 230 now, and still moving. By the way, also before we start, I need to go through a few elements of housekeeping. Most importantly, the webinar is being recorded. So, well, by participating, you accept this, and hopefully that's fine. The recording of the webinar will be shown and will be provided later in the GLAD website. So you will get all the details as well later if you need to go back to them. Then let me go through the agenda very briefly. So today, as you see, we'll go over through mainly through four main parts of the presentation. First, we'll see an introductory session with some opening remarks and a live tour to what we see in the Global LCA Data Access Network. With the proper e-launch and hopefully a virtual toast that hopefully many of you are ready for it with something to toast. Then in the second part, we'll go a bit deeper into what is actually the core of GLAD. So the LCA data, the nodes, the database providers. We'll have a bit of a panel with the database providers. There will be also a presentation of a recent report to support the development of national LCA databases. And finally, some more practical elements about the way in which you can connect to GLAD. There will be 2 sessions for questions and answers, and you see them highlighted in yellow here in the agenda. So after the session on data and after the following session on how to get involved, there will be a brief time to provide answers to maybe 1 or 2 of your questions. The questions, you will have noticed that all of you are muted, and this is the feature of the GoToWebinar, but there's a section for questions. Please type in your questions, and at these specific points in the agenda, we'll stop and try and pick 1 or 2 of them to answer them live. As I was going through the agenda, so the third part will be much more about how you can participate, how you can get involved in GLAD. And then we'll end up with a bit of a vision of the next steps and what will happen in the future, or where do we want to get to in the future. So as mentioned, the questions can only be asked through the typing, through the section on questions, and then supported by Umaima, our intern who is helping us with that. She will be picking some of the questions or some of the key topics that are appearing in the questions, and we will try and address them at these 2 points. Don't worry if your question is not answered. Sorry, we will do our best to answer all the questions and provide them in writing in the website next to the recording after the launch, of course. And in terms of the logistics, we will also be doing some polls during the webinar, also to keep you awake, particularly those of you who are getting late at night. And we can get started with the first one. So in this first poll, as you can see on the screen, you have to think of what is the one most important aspect that you feel is needed to manage faster decision support by LCA. So how to get LCA better and faster into decision support. So you have these 4 options. You can only click one. And I think we can now get the first poll up. And I can see that the answers are already coming, which is great. We'll just pause for a little second to see how your votes are coming. Seeing the results, there's a bit of a tie up there in terms of increased capacity by decision makers and policymakers to understand LCA and the enhanced access to LCA data. Now, can I see? Yeah, 57% have voted. Maybe let's give it a few more seconds. It certainly seems that access to data is coming up high, but capacity and capacity development is really up there. So, wow, that's really exciting. This is this is like the election night. Okay, well, maybe I think we can. So we have 74, 75% voted. Maybe we can close the poll now. Next time you'll have to click the button faster. So Maima, please, that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think you can see now the poll results. So 47%, it seems that certainly many of you, I guess it would make sense as well today, see that the access to data is very high in your priorities. And certainly that's one of the points, or that's one of the key points that GLAD wants to solve. So now at least we know certainly that the polls work, which is very good. That was a good test. Now we can move to the first part of the presentation, and we'll move with that to our first speaker. And for me, it's a great pleasure to be able to introduce you to our first speaker today, Emmanuel Mer. Although I don't see Emmanuel connected yet. Okay, so maybe in that case, we will move. Emmanuel, can you speak up if maybe I'm not seeing you? Okay, so it seems that we'll have an issue, but maybe what we will do, we will move to our second speaker. So Stephen, I'll hand over the control to you, so you can control your slides. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much, Jorens. I may actually ask you to move the slides forward for me, since I'm not exactly sure where the controls lie. But colleagues, it's a real pleasure to be with you this afternoon, this morning, this evening, wherever you happen to be. It's a milestone day, and I was thinking, you know, just before joining the call, World Environment Day was about a week ago, and the theme for World Environment Day was Time for Nature. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking that, you know, life cycle analysis helps us understand our impact on nature. It's a way to approach our relationship with nature, understand how we interact with nature, and sort of the side effects or the externalities of how we produce and consume. And in a world today where communication is so important and there's so much spin, it's really data and evidence that can set the record straight. So hats off to you, Jorens, and to the entire team and to the broader network for getting to this important milestone today. And the fact that it's an open access data set, I think, is tremendously important. It's hard to get to the right information sometime, and if you look at the whole history of the global life cycle analysis data set over the years, and here, Jorens, I think you can go forward with the slides. You see that there was just a tremendous amount of effort that went into this. So really, it is a very important milestone. But let me just step back for a minute in terms of the context. I have made the connection to the world environment today. And the other thing I wanted to say is, for those of you who follow the UN Environment Assembly, last year's Environment Assembly UN Environment Assembly 4, life cycle analysis was everywhere. It was everywhere, and for a very good reason, because it helps us to understand our relationship with nature. So it really is key to understanding sustainable consumption and production. And for me personally, I see it as a way of helping us understand the circular economy, of measuring circularity, both of products, of economies, of firms, of entire economies and countries even. So in here, the Life Cycle Initiative has been a big player. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the timeline. For those of you who have been with this for some time, you know it goes back almost 10 years. And that's a long time to be investing effort. But I think here it's worth it, because this collective effort to build an open access data set has taken a lot of time. It kicked off back in 2012 in Brussels with the support of the European Union. And it's interesting because I joined later on. I joined UNEP in 2010 actually, but I didn't get deeply involved in the Life Cycle Initiative until a few years ago, to really realize how important it is to have this scientific evidence base to looking at our footprint, essentially. So Brussels kickoff. Next slide. I think we just run through all the milestones here. And Jorens, feel free to jump in if you want. Some of you have lived this, as they say in Spanish, in carne propia, right? You've actually lived all of these different things. 2014 was a big milestone. I think it was hosted in the United States by the EPA. This is when a lot of the ideas of interoperability, of accessibility, and the ability of data sets to talk to each other was introduced. No easy task. Next slide. 2016, this one was in Malaysia, so on the other side of the world. But again, the structure, the governance agreed, and many of you who were there will know the amount of effort that went into making not only data sets talk, but the protocols for how data sets will talk. This is really sort of going beyond beta testing and actually making the data accessible. Next slide. So 2016, this is when the overall architecture was agreed, and GLAD logo was created, so really starting to take shape, and the different component pieces and how they talk to each other, sort of the guts of the Global Lifecycle Analysis database came together, hosted by our friends in Brazil that year. And you see Jorens dressed very nicely in the front, and also Hugo and some other other our friends who have been with us. 2018 was an event in Brussels, Belgium, again hosted with our EU colleagues, and I was at that event with some of you and met some of you there, where we did the first launch of GLAD for the nodes to connect. And there was a few dry runs there, and it was sort of getting the wrinkles out, I think, and preparing us for today, 2020, when we actually are ready to go live. Next slide. Yeah, so here we are, 2020. I think the point is that we've come a long way together by working together. And as Joran said, it would not be possible without the efforts of many, many who share that common objective of making it work. Because we need data to talk to each other, we need access between data sets, and we need to make it accessible so that users and governments and eventually policymakers have access to this very rich set of data to better inform decisions about our personal choices, our collective choices, our production choices, our firm choices, our consumer choices, and ultimately our policy choices. Yeah, so next slide. So we have come a long way, and that's thanks to very many good partners who have been with us from the start. They're here listed on this slide, and you know who you are. And I think it speaks to the breadth of the number of organizations and individuals who have been involved, who have contributed time, money, ideas, inspiration to make it work. And it really is a collective effort. So a big and a huge thank you to all of you who have joined us on this journey. Next slide. I think this is one of the last. Yeah, and my personal message here to all of you on the call is we're not there yet. So today we're launching. I'm sure there will still be a few bugs, but from UN Environment Program side, this is a tremendously important day because it marks a milestone when we do go live and we launch. And we encourage you to stay with us on the next steps when GLAD really takes shape and becomes more accessible, becomes usable, becomes the de facto go-to place for data and parameters on lifecycle analysis, and really brings this whole effort, this empirical, this data-rich effort into the mainstream so that it can have the impact that it truly deserves. So thanks very much, Jorens, and back over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Yeah, thank you for running us through the history of GLAD. Actually, I wanted, well, I've been trying to get hold of Emmanuelle Mer, and she's right. She's written to me that there's something wrong with her computer or with the connection, but she's not managing to connect. Just checking one last time, but she sent me her remarks. So Emmanuelle Mer, she's the head of unit, the Sustainable Production Products and Consumption Unit in DG Environment at the European Commission. So I'll try and read what she sent me through the chat, through the email. Sorry. So we have been, and I will not put the camera because, well, you have her picture, which is much nicer, obviously. This is what she wrote. We have been involved, that's the European Commission, early on in today's adventure. It started in 2012 with the International Forum on LCA Cooperation in Brussels. We supported from the beginning the idea of sharing data on life cycle assessments at global level and of joining forces to reach increased data accessibility and interoperability. Several international forums were convened. The forum in 2014 in Washington, D.C. advanced the key idea of creating an international platform. As we saw with Stephen, GLAD became operational a year later in Shah Alam in Malaysia, with the establishment of the working groups and the steering committee, of which the European Commission has been a member ever since, chaired by my colleague Hugo Schally, who will speak later during this event. We were involved in the first demo launch of GLAD in 2018. We support 2 projects with UN Environment and many partners. The first one is the REAL project, Resource Efficiency through Application of Lifecycle Thinking, where GLAD is a key tool to support the goals of increasing LCA data accessibility and boost national LCA database creations. The second one is the InTextile project with UNEP to increase the uptake of circular economy by textile businesses and governments. The aim is to ensure they benefit from enhanced LCA data for the textile sector through GLAD. So the next step is to achieve effective mapping systems across different data format and nomenclature, and the long-term maintenance, the adaptation of the platform to new needs, and the creation of a converter to allow GLAD's users to download any data in the format they need. So this leads us to the full launch today. It comes at a time where the European Commission wants to be at large on the digital and green transition to overcome the current crisis, to develop green markets for companies and green jobs. We call it the European Green Deal. This is our roadmap towards climate neutrality by 2050. It is also our growth strategy. We have a new circular economy action plan adopted in March, which aims to transform the way we produce and consume. We transform our waste and create secondary resources for our economy. It announces 35 initiatives for the entire life cycle of products, from design and manufacturing to consumption, repair, reuse, recycling, and bringing resources back into the economy. One of the legislative measures envisaged is on green claims by producers, which we think should be backed by reliable evidence, by the environmental footprint methods. Our work on the environmental footprint methods has been ongoing since 2013. It covers 16 environmental hotspots and considers impacts along the supply chain of products. We successfully tested them during 5 years and will now use them to support the transition to a greener, more circular economy. There are clear synergies between the PEF and GLAD. Dear colleagues, it is a pleasure to work with UNEP and all colleagues around the world, because ultimately the GLAD platform can be a game changer to support sustainable production and consumption and circular economy internationally. So that was, those were Emmanuel's remarks, and now let me switch back on my camera. So now you see it's again me, Lorenz, speaking from UNEP. And I would like to thank again, let me now shift back on Stephen's presentation so we get back to the next point. And thank you so much for those words, both Emmanuel, even if, and I'm really sorry that the connection didn't work technically, and your words as well, Stephen, on setting the scene on what we're launching today. Now we move to the GLAD launch itself, and for that I have the pleasure to give the floor to Wes Ingwersen from the US Environmental Protection Agency. Wes, the floor is yours, and I can also hand you the control unless you want me to pass the slides for you.
Oh, sure, if you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
And Stephen as well for those opening remarks. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to join today. I work in the field of LCA like many of you today that are on the call. And we know we're witnessing more and more uses of LCA. LCA has now moved well beyond its use just as a tool for comparing alternatives and products and for product design, into now being used to develop product standards and eco labels and EPDs, publish organizational footprints, perform prospective technology assessment, provide insight into regional and national policy like sustainable materials management and the circular economy as was mentioned. So this growth and diversification of the uses of LCA requires more and more data. And because you can't perform life cycle assessment without data that cover all the activities in the supply chain and downstream, cradle to grave, right? And knowing that for what even appear to be simple products, that we are in a globalized world, so these are globalized supply chains. So in this new context, a few things have become clear. One entity or organization can't provide all the data on their own. The need is just too vast. Two, we know users use a variety of software and tools to perform these analyses. So these data need to be available across more than one of these tools. And three, we know from even our relatively short history in the field of LCA that we haven't been able to agree on one single data format or nomenclature for our data. So those of us in the GLAD initiative have recognized, acknowledged these realities. And from across the globe and coming from all types of different organizations, we've been dreaming big together to provide a platform where users can come to search through data that are truly global, and they're not limited to any one provider or any one country, software, data format, or nomenclature. And just as importantly, it needs to be a place, and it will be a place, where data providers, whatever part of the world or type of organization they represent, can join in and provide their data. So from the early sketches of the global network that we saw in one of the slides earlier today, and through all of the hard work of turning this into a reality, we come to you today very proud to launch a platform that is incarnating this dream of the Global LCA Data Access Network, or GLAD. So with honor, I declare GLAD launched for all users, and I'm going to turn this over now to my GLAD colleague, Oliver Kucha, to walk us through this new platform. Oliver?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Wes. And yeah, thank you for having me today. Yeah, this is very exciting. Now we're officially launching this. And I just want to give you a brief introduction of what GLAD is, what it does, and how it works. There's so many different use cases, so many scenarios, where you're looking for a specific LCA data set, or just browsing around. We can't cover all of them, so we're just going to look at a couple of arbitrary examples here. So imagine recently at a conference, I met this guy and he told me, well, they're researching really advanced stuff with the microfibrillated cellulose, and they even have an LCA data set for it. And now I come across a project where I really need this, and I don't remember. This guy was like from what? I don't know, where was he from? Scandinavia. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a search for cellulose. And here I see, this gives me 129 data sets. Think of GLAD as sort of the search engine, like a Google for LCA data. It's not a database itself, but it's an index, sort of a directory where that enables people to find what they're looking for. So, well, that's quite a bit of quite a large number of data sets. So let's turn on the filters and see now from which different providers these are. So we see Econvent, US, IDEA, different ones. And now let's see, because I remember this guy was like from Scandinavia somewhere, and I see, oh yeah, he's Norway. So let's filter for Norway and see if we can reduce the number of hits. And yeah, there we go. So this is 4 data sets now. They're all from Norway. And we see here a couple of metadata information. We can also go here on the More button and inspect a bit more. We can here read the description of the process. The search term that we entered is conveniently highlighted. We can read the technology description. We can check out all the metadata. So obviously this is a data set in ILCD data format. It adheres to the ILCD nomenclature. Oh, and look, it's free. That's good. Free is always good. So let's see. Oh yeah, here I see a go to dataset button and a download button. Now, if I go to the go dataset button, this will take me to the site of the data provider where I can inspect this data set. So here I see the actual data set at the location of the data provider. I can read all the meta information, and then I can scroll down, and here I see the full inventory. So this is a free data set that free of charge for all users and users. It's great. So let's go ahead and download it. If I click on the download button here, it actually gives me 3 options. So I can download this in 3 different data formats. I'm going to go ahead and download it in ILCD. There it goes. So here my browser shows there's the data set. But now it gave me 2 other options. So here it says equals bold, and well, if you know, there's always this thing with data format conversion, nomenclature conversion. That's always quite a pain for LCA practitioners who really want to get their work done and make quality LCAs, not worry about fiddling with different data formats. So what this allows us to do is actually, when I click here on EcoSpolt, this gives me the option to download this data set, which natively is an LCD format, to my computer in EcoSpolt. And this is under the hood being transparently fetched from the data node of the data provider, converted by the GLAD conversion servers, and then handed back right to my browser. And this is really awesome. This is one of the core features of GLAD that is supposed to help interoperability. If I go here now to the downloads, I see here there's a zip file with all the EcoSpolt files in there. So this transparent conversion service is one of the core features of GLAD. And yeah, we hope that the more data we have, the more we can improve this to come to a point where we really have interoperable LCA data where nobody needs to worry about data formats anymore. Now, let's see what else we got. Let's see. We have let's see what sort of free data we got. So we have of these 80,000 data sets, we have short of 6,000 free ones. Now we can see here in the data provider, this will give us all the data providers which have free data. Oh, look, here's World Steel. Let's see what they got. So I see 45 data sets from World Steel. This is nice. They're all free. So I can go here and inspect one of these data sets. I can read the descriptions and check out all the metadata. And yeah, there again is the button Go to Dataset. And if I click on there, it'll take me to the website of World Steel, where obviously they want me to complete a form to request the data. So these data sets are not online, but that's like a manual process of I have to fill out a questionnaire, and then they're going to send me the data. So these are basically the two main use cases where we have on one side data that are hosted online that I can directly download to my computer, optionally through the converter, so I can have it converted into another data format. Or we have the other data sets where we have entries on these data in the GLAD index, and with the button Go to Dataset, I will be taken to the data provider and then can get in touch with them to obtain the data. The same holds true, of course, for the data that is not free of charge but is licensed for a fee. There obviously has to be a transaction with the data provider first. Yes, and with that, thank you for letting me introduce this at this historical moment. And I hand back to Jens.
Thanks, Oliver. This is me, Wes Ingerson again, and what we'd like to do now with everybody is to try something new. Everything is a little bit new in our new reality here, and we'd like to do a virtual toast to GLAD. Cheers to our progress. And we'd like to try to get selfies from you or screenshots so that we know that everybody that's participating there today can join us in this. So with that, we can raise your glass or just wave, and maybe we can do a screenshot with everyone coming together for this.
Hey guys, I guess the email address that we're supposed to send the selfie to is not visible on the screen. It's cut off on the bottom. I think that will be the most important piece of information on that slide, apart from Jonathan's smile, of course.
Yeah. So
on the spot editing. I hope you can see it now. It's on the top.
You guys see it? I don't.
I don't know. I don't see it yet.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe you need to stop the screen sharing.
Apologies. Apologies.
Yeah,
It was my fault.
There,
Yeah.
now it's there.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers, guys and gals.
Cheers.
Of the world. Cheers.
Well, thank you very much for that. And so for the next section of the presentation today, then we'd like to move on to some other user journeys where we'll show you some cases for different users of the GLAD platform with some real examples. So with that, I'd like to first introduce my colleague, also in GLAD, Carolina Scarenzi, who's going to take us through a user journey from an LCA practitioner's perspective. Carolina, are you there? I don't think we hear you yet.
You're still muted, Carolina.
Yeah, there it goes. Sorry for that. Thank you, Wes, again. I was saying this is my toast for GLAD. It's morning here in Chile, so I'm with my mate. Thank you very much. What I would like to share with you today is the great value of using GLAD when you are performing an LCA study. So it's really making my own work more easier. So I want to share this with you in an example. So I have a client in the aquaculture sector here in Chile, and they are trying to find a more sustainable. Sorry, I don't have control of the screen now. Yeah, I do. Can you turn the next slide, please? Just to make it easier. So my client, he is looking for an alternative, a more sustainable alternative for their feed of the fish. And we are doing an LCA, and here we want to simulate the ingredients of the feed with data that currently represents what my client uses. So we don't want to use a very generic data set. We want to use something that is more accurate. So how I can do this using GLAD, please play the tutorial. I will go to the website. I will go back. Do you manage to play it?
There you go. You should go.
Well,
sorry about that.
Don't worry. But still, this was a tutorial to show you with a real example how to do this. But I guess it's not working, but I will do it anyway. What I show you here is that you type in, there it goes. Excellent, thank you. So you type in fish meal, and to see what you get on GLAD. And well, you will get a few results, as Oliver showed, around 100 results here as well. There you go, 100 results. So this is great. I have 100 results for this, and these come from different dataset providers. So first advantage of GLAD, several LC lifecycle inventory dataset, all in a single interface, right? So I need to narrow down my results. I will type in Peru because this is where my client gets his fish meal. And I have now 44 datasets. It's still a lot, so let's scroll down and see what we find. So let's check this one here, right? I will go into more to check the full description of the dataset. I also can read that the technology is very similar to the one that my client uses, so great, this will make it more accurate. And on the side, I can read this, the provider here is Peru LCA, and it's also free to use. So first question, how many of you did know that Peru had their own national database? I didn't know this when I was doing my LCA study. I would have eventually found this data set on the internet, but it would have taken more time. With GLAD, it only took one click. So second advantage of GLAD, less time needed to find data for our LCA studies, which is great. And of course, this is also less cost. So I click on to go to download, yes, the data set. I am directed to this external website, that's the Peru LCA website, and I can download the file. As you can see from this website, from the Peru LCA website, there is no metadata that you can access straight away. You need to download the file first. But in GLAD, we didn't have this problem. The metadata was published there. So GLAD has all the metadata are visible in a standardized format for every data set, for every database. So this finally makes it easier for us to compare and choose the most accurate data for our studies. And that means to say the one that best fits the particular purpose of your study. Next slide, please. So well, this slide here summarizes some of the benefits we were checking on the mini tutorial. Sorry for the it didn't work at the beginning, but I hope that all this is starting to make you feel a little bit more excited, as I am, on how GLAD really is helping us LCA practitioners to do our job in a smarter and quicker way. So many thanks for your attention. I hand on to Tiago for the next user journey.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Oliver, the ones before me. So I am Thiago Rodrigues. I guess I have the power now for changing, yeah? I guess, yes. So I am Thiago Rodrigues. I am the lead researcher on information for sustainability at the Brazilian Institute for Science and Technology Information, IBICT. I'm also a member of the technical management group of GLAD. Yes, it works, yeah. So we are IBICT from Brazil, and we manage the Brazilian life cycle inventory database called SICV Brazil. Like all of our services or products, our national database is free for any user, and the Institute is one of the main players of the open access initiative here in Brazil. So our database wants to promote the life cycle thinking in the Brazilian productive sector to improve its competitiveness in the international market. And the database also aims to increase the scientific development of methods for LCA in Brazil and to support the creation of sustainable public policies based on evidence. So if you ask, are we glad? Yes, we are really glad, really from the beginning. You can see us when you do a filter in the search data sets. And SICV Brazil wants to reach stakeholders beyond our geographical boundaries, since value chains are global. Furthermore, we want to provide data sets to researchers, businessmen, and policymakers wherever they are from. People and institutions from countries that deal with Brazil are considered about the environmental footprint of their production and consumption systems, naturally. So, want to make it global, want to open our boundaries, and GLAD is the perfect platform to make this data exchange possible. Through GLAD, our data sets are connected to every potential stakeholder in the world needing to measure environmental impacts and understanding the trade-offs in the productive systems from a holistic approach. SICV is national, and GLAD makes SICV global and puts Brazil in the group of countries that are making sustainable development measurable, transparent, and possible. So it was very quick, and this is my message to you, that as a node owner in experience in SICIV, I'm not managing to pass the last one, but this was just to thank you a lot for your attention, and let us keep in touch wherever, when needed.
Thank you, Thiago, for that example of how GLAD would help you as a data provider to make your data more available globally. And thank you, Carolina, as well, for the LCA practitioner perspective, showing how GLAD could make your life easier to find the data that you would need for your study. We're going to move on now to try our second poll. So everyone that's out there listening, if you wouldn't mind directing your attention to the screen. We'd like to know, what kind of GLAD user would you characterize yourself as? A policymaker, an LCA practitioner, or a node owner? So we'll give you a few seconds to complete this poll. And I might ask one of my other moderators if they're able to actually see the results, to let me know when those results are coming in and what they're looking like.
Yes, that's true. Sorry, we can hear it. So we have 87% LCA practitioner at the moment, 10%, 11% policymakers, 2% node owners, which I guess it's also a good representation of the world out there. There's not that many node owners, but many people who use them. So particularly LCA practitioners, who seem to be the big majority today. This has been open for close to a minute, and 60% of the participants have voted. Okay, so maybe great. I would give it a few more seconds, and we can then probably close it. Oh, so now I think we're seeing the poll results.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. I agree. Perhaps this is pretty representative of our audience. We know we have a lot of LCA users out there, and some policymakers that are interested in having LCA inform their policy, and then some data providers as well. So with that, I think we'd like to move on to the next part of the presentation today. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Cassia Sinian from PRE Sustainability, for a forum on for the node owners. Cassia?
Oh, unmute. Thank you so much, Wes, and welcome everybody. Indeed, let's start the second block of the launch and learn about some of the nodes that have already been connected to GLAD. And as you will see in the next slide, we're already talking about a large number of data that is already available. And here on the slide, the size of each bubble represents the relative amount of datasets connected in GLAD for different countries. And we have both countries with a significant amount of datasets, and also others that have only few representative datasets, often coming from global databases. But you can see the coverage is quite impressive already at the moment. And some of these data providers are here with us today, and we'll talk about their motivations and expectations from GLAD initiative. And dear data providers, I'll ask you to have very short answers, because we have many speakers today, and of course we would love to hear from all of you. And let's start with Kiyotaka Tahara, because I know it is super late for you in Japan. Kiyotaka is representing IDEA database, and we would like to hear about the reasons that compelled Japan to be part of GLAD from the very beginning, because I was told before the launch that it was one of the first nodes, or maybe even the very first one that was connected. Kiyotaka?
Yes. My name is Kiyotaka Tahara from Japan. So you already explained that. I think we are one of the
feel
first.
free to turn on the camera as well,
Okay.
so everybody can see you.
Okay. So the one of the first updating our metadata. So as I think it's Koichi, we try to update so Koichi tried to so some computers is programming, so we need it. So but there is not so much I'd say not so big problem. There's not so big problem. So it is very smoothly updating. So and then we think about is a very important last question is I think so. Peter is Peter was also explaining to the we think is a nomenclature, the other kind of the technical working group is very important, I think. So we talk about is we talk about is each database, and then we are understanding each other. So then is that we can combine to the how to say in the same way go to the same way. That is a very important things. After that is a life cycle inventory and life cycle information is so the other village is we are the life cycle assessment village person is for the other village is SDGs or the other kind of the person is like believe in the life cycle assessment result. So then is go to the more environmental world, I think. Thank you very much. What?
Cassie,
Yes,
I think you're muted.
you're unmuted.
Again, sorry, maybe I'll just not unmute and just be quiet when the others are speaking. I wanted to move to another database and talk to Gregor Vernet from EcoInvent Association. Gregor, why did you decide to join GLAD? And don't make my mistake and unmute yourself.
Sorry, I got a warning that my data connection might not be good enough to support video as well, but let me know if my audio becomes unbearable, then I'll turn off my camera. Well, thank you, Kasia, first of all, for the question, and to everyone for the work that we've done to get GLAD where it is now. I recognized myself from a few years earlier. It's been definitely a worthwhile process. So from our perspective, we wanted to support the idea of GLAD from its very beginning, also because it is really in line with what we ourselves are also trying to work towards as a nonprofit. We take our resources and use them towards making data more accessible, making more data accessible, and also supporting data providers and users of data worldwide when it comes to LCA data. Therefore, for us, this was a very interesting proposal from the very beginning, and we're happy to participate. It's been a long process, but a lot from it, beyond even what we see today with the platform, there have been working groups working on different issues to solve some of the concerns that that are now solved, for example, through the converter or through the display of consistent metadata. And that was very interesting for us. But in the end, I mean, the initial idea and the concept of GLAD, which still stands today, is that it should support really users worldwide in finding LCA data, having data more accessible, and also more findable, more approachable, and more interoperable. That's something that we definitely wanted to support. It supports also data providers in getting their data out there. People struggle sometimes with finding the right way to inform about the data they have. Even if they have prepared good data, it's difficult to get the word out. And this platform, that a unified search function, is a real game changer for that. That's really highly appreciated from us also. And from our perspective, we're happy to have also this way of showing what data we can offer, but also what partners can offer that work independently of us to see, and also the ability and the opportunity to connect to other data developers and data providers through this project has already been a great help and a great boon for us, and we look forward to having more of that.
Thank you so much, Gregor. We also have with us Tiago Braga from SICV Brazil. Tiago, could you shortly explain what were the reasons behind your database joining GLAD?
Okay, thank you, Cassia. As the institution responsible for hosting recognized national Brazilian LCA datasets, IBICT supported GLAD from the very beginning, because we believe that everyone have benefits when there is a project focusing in opening important information, and the network that we are launching today always was committed to be open and is focused in very important sustainable information. Since the GLAD Brazilian meeting in 2016, when we established GLAD's infrastructure principles, we have worked together with specialists all around the world and could share our advances and benefit from others' advances too. To connect with GLAD, we had to propose an entire new process of making available our data sets, and this led us to improve the way we manage our database. I can say that the approach used to develop the network enabled us to share Brazilian primary data in a simple web interface without the necessity of complex computer programming. The opportunity to have a global network which is open and prepared to support connections from a diversity of users, aiming to find information that will allow them to understand in a better way the flow of energy and materials and how the production of goods and services could impact the environment, was the key reason why Brazil chose to be GLAD. Thank you and congratulations to all of you that contributed with GLAD.
Thank you, Tiago. We also have an example of a sectoral database. Ian Miller from World Steel. Could you explain why it was important for a sectoral database like yours to be available through GLAD?
Yes, hello. So as many of the other people have already said, we've been producing LCIs for the last since last 25 years of steel products, and we want to make sure that people can use our LCIs in their own LCA studies, because we think we've got really good data, and therefore we make sure that the data is free and can be available to anyone who wants it. And in the past, we utilize Sphera and Prey and any other database we can, and to advertise the fact. And it was just a very easy fit when we saw that GLAD was going to be available as a global sort of search engine to be able to direct people to information, and we saw that our data would fit in there quite nicely, and people could look at the metadata and decide whether our data sets fit in with their own LCA studies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another sector-oriented database that we have today is Agribalise, and it represents a sector that many people find very special because it focuses on French food. Vincent, hello. I know the latest version has just been released of Agribalise, and I'm very curious to hear what do you find important in GLAD?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Keisha. Yes,
Well, I'm Vincent Colomb. I'm coordinating the Agribalis database for more than 5 years now. And we're very happy that we could connect our database to the GLAD platform. It's a French database about agriculture and food consumption. And in this sector, we obviously import and export products from all over the world. And we cannot make all the LCA of the world, of course. So it's really important to have good cooperation between database developers. And GLAD is a big support for, so far we did not have it, but it would have been greatly useful for developing the current version. And for the next one, it will really help us to improve our work. And it will also make our work more available for the rest of the people. So we really think it's a very useful initiative. It's also, when we connect data, it's really important not to know only about the data, but the quality of the data, so to bring transparency. And GLAD is really helpful on that as well. And so just in a very brief word, the process for integrating was very smooth and the technical team very efficient. So if there are data providers that are wondering whether they should go in the process, don't hesitate. It took me very little time for great benefit for the community. So congratulations to everyone. And I think we have still a big potential that LCA can be used more widely in policy decision for the companies. And I hope GLAD will contribute.
Thank you. We also have Peter Arbuckle from the US Department of Agriculture with us today. Peter, what was your experience with GLAD so far?
Thank you, Kasia. Here in the US, we're committed to data-driven decision-making, open data initiatives, and the FAIR data principles for data management, which are making data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We're excited about GLAD to increase public access to United States lifecycle assessment data sets and the data sets that are being generated through our federal LCA research programs. Further, GLAD is also a really nice demonstration of the ability to share data and make progress toward data and model interoperability on a global scale. It's been a really nice global and participatory process, or inclusive process, of collaboration and making progress on conventions. And we see this as a really great first step, and we're excited to participate in GLAD's continued evolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And staying in the Americas, we also have a great pleasure to host one of the youngest LCA databases. Peru made a great progress in very short period of time, and let's hear about that from Ian Vasquez. Ian, what brought Peru LCA to GLAD, and what's your experience?
Thank you very much, Kasia. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. For us in the Peruvian Lifecycle Assessment Network, it was very inspiring to start a project to build our national lifecycle database, Peru LCA, back in December 2016. And it was very inspiring to do this in parallel with the creation of GLAD and having a common target. No, first of all, to generate a database, which was launched in May last year, and then do the extra effort to be able to be interconnected with GLAD and all the other databases. No, so. First, it's been very nice to see during the construction phase the enormous amount of South-South and North-South collaboration between different countries and actors and different individuals that were very highly motivated to get things going. And now we hope that in the operation process, we can gain a visibility that we were not able to attain other ways. Thank you, Carolina, for the publicity from Chile earlier on. And we also think that it will become a very powerful tool in order to give a growing visibility to the wider LCA community within academia, for policy making, and also within the private sector. So thank you very much for all of those involved in creating Peru LCA and also making the interconnection with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, I have a statement from Martin Beitz, a director of content at Sphera, which I think all of us still think of as ThinkStep. Martin was not able to join us today, or he was very kind to provide a few sentences about Sphera's experience and the reasons why they have joined. So I will read that statement now. Sphera, formerly ThinkStep, decided to support GLAD early on because it is about diversity and inclusion in terms of LCA. LCA is an exercise that includes different users in different countries working in different sectors and societies on different LCA tools. However, all diverse stakeholders aim for appropriate recognition and quality results in their given circumstances. GLAD aims to support all LCA users to find data, identify different applications of data, evaluate data, access data, and exchange data. Sphera aims to support by establishing GLAD as an international software-independent, extendable platform for LCA data of various types, which helps to understand the value of existing and upcoming LCA data diversity. Only if people know about the value of diversity of LCA data, they understand that we need to include all data to get the most appropriate results in any given case. This data diversity and inclusion is only possible if we're working towards a common and software-independent understanding and exchange, which in LCA terms is an independent format. Sphera contributed to the technical improvement of the platform and supported the test uploads and diagnosis during the development, and uploaded about 2,000 datasets to GLAD. We hope that the GLAD platform will continue to equitably include and present the diversity of LCA data globally across all societal, environmental, and economic needs. Diversity and inclusion is important in society and LCA, as all people and all data matters. We just need to understand each other. That was the message from Martin Beitz and Sphera. And I have to mention that in case some of you are wondering, to have Prey, the developer of CIMAPRO, read the statement of ThinkStep was a complete coincidence, but I think quite a nice one if you think about GLAD being an inclusive initiative for interoperable data. And this concludes the panel session with some of the GLAD notes. I would like to thank you, all the speakers, for your willingness to participate today and share your experiences, and of course for connecting to GLAD in the first place. It's great having you. And as we heard from some of the national notes, generating locally representative data is a very important aspect in LCA. And it just happens that UNEP is releasing today a report that covers exactly that topic. I have a pleasure to introduce Pippa Notten from the University of Cape Town and TGH Think Space, who will briefly introduce this report. Pippa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kasia, and hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about this new release that shares its launch with GLAD. It's called the Roadmap for National LCA Database Development Guidance and Recommendations from Around the World. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge my co-author, Carl Vadenbo. You can see there on the slide with me. Carl has led the development of this publication and was also the project manager of the project from which the guidance arose. So that would be my next slide. Do I have control? It's not moving on my side. Yeah, thank you. So that project was development of national LCA database roadmaps. It was coordinated by UNEP and funded by the European Commission as part of the REAL project. So the database roadmaps project aimed to address what we've already heard about just now in your introduction, was that whilst LCA is foundational for measuring resource efficiency, environmental impacts, and ultimately the circularity of our products and economies, for many countries, the lack of data representative of their realities is hampering this. So the project saw 6 countries at different levels of LCA maturity advance on their journeys towards addressing this and establishing national LCA databases, following a roadmap approach. Can I have my next slide? Thanks. Sorry, one back. You skipped one. Or do, yeah, thanks. So the project consortium, which was the previous one. Yeah, there we go. The project consortium was made up of the following member organizations, spanning Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. And then within each country, the member organizations formed national database working groups with the aim for inclusivity and stakeholder diversity, resulting in a large number of local actors and organizations contributing to the roadmap development in each country. Okay, so now the next one. Next slide. Thank you. So onto the publication itself. As would be expected from the background I've just given you, the guidance takes the approach that a structured way to guide the development of national LCA databases is to establish a roadmap with a clear action plan. So the guidance it actually built on a working document that was developed by the consortium members during the database roadmaps project. And so for the publication, we've neatened this up and elaborated on aspects where needed, and then also incorporated the experiences from the participating countries as they went about developing their roadmaps, and then also insights from other national LCA databases around the world. Importantly, the guidance is neutral in terms of data formats and database systems, and instead emphasizes the importance of data interoperability. In fact, the experience of the database roadmaps project showed that there isn't really a one-size-fits-all solution for database governance, business model, IT solutions, and all the other things that go into it. So the guidance really takes the approach of giving examples and exploring the alternatives. The publication is available for download on the Lifecycle Initiative website, and it's in English and also in Spanish. Next slide, thanks. So with this flowchart, I invite you to go and explore the publication. It outlines the 3 phases of developing a national LCA database that we go through. So starting on the left with stakeholder engagement and awareness raising, and then through to the real nuts and bolts of developing the roadmap, and in the middle there with each element of the roadmap listed in the middle, covered in detail in the guidance. And then finally on to implementing the first tasks of the action plan. Thank you. And the next slide. So, and finally, and most importantly, I want to acknowledge all those who made the publication possible. I don't have time to read through everyone, but I would like to acknowledge the Lifecycle Initiative and all those that contributed, as well as the reviewers, and then also the Ibero-American Lifecycle Network that reviewed the Spanish version. And finally, for my last slide, thanks, Cassia, I leave you with some impressions of roadmap development in action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pippa, for this introduction of the report. And I really hope that the experience that is described in the roadmap will guide the development of many national databases in the future. And once those databases are booming, I hope to find them all in GLAD. And speaking of connection with GLAD or uploading data to GLAD, I would like to hand over to Oliver Kuscher. And Oliver will tell us a bit about how the nodes can connect in practice.
Yeah, thank you, Kasia. Let me get control, take control. How can I, can you just give me, yeah, okay. Now, as of today, we've got over 80,000 LCA data sets registered in GLAD, and I think that's pretty amazing. Moreover, that represents almost 16,000 distinct products and services from various sectors and from all over the world, as we've seen earlier in the funky maps that Jonathan's prepared. And that's only the beginning. There's a lot more data already in the pipeline that will be registered in GLAD shortly. Now, if you have LCA data you want to be listed in GLAD, here's a brief overview of your options, how to get it in. There's a little delay in the slides here. Yes, on the right-hand side of this slide, we see some users who are interacting with the GLAD website. The actual metadata is stored in what we call the GLAD metadata index. That's where the metadata of all these 80,000 data sets are stored. And this GLAD metadata index has an interface to the outside world, which we call API, which stands for Application Programming Interface. It is used both for the website to show things to humans and to the nodes to submit their registration. Now, to get the metadata of your LCA data into GLAD, there are three basic options. The first one is if your organization is operating an in-house IT solution that holds your LCA data, you could add support for the GLAD API, which is rather simple. And with that, you can register all the metadata in GLAD easily via the API. The second option is if you're operating one of the off-the-shelf solutions like sort of LCA, the open source data sharing application, or the OpenLCA collaboration server. These two support the GLAD API out of the box. So any data that's in there can be registered in GLAD with just a few clicks. Now, the third option on the bottom is the most simple one. For example, when you're not operating an online database yet, there's a simple spreadsheet that we call the GLAD metadata template, which you can either manually fill out with your metadata or you extract information from your database. Then this spreadsheet can be submitted to the GLAD index, which is currently still a manual process, but in the near future, we plan to deliver a self-service feature where you can just upload the spreadsheet to the GLAD website and the system will do the registration for you. Now, data that is to be shown to a global audience should ideally be offered in a data format and nomenclature system that is widely supported by LCA software tools, because you want to enable as many people as possible to be able to use it. So ideally, you would be using one of the major formats, but in principle, data of any format can be registered in GLAD because GLAD has its own metadata information. So far, UNEP has been providing free support to interested nodes who want to register their data in GLAD, which has been used by many already. So many data sets have been registered with that help. And UNEP will continue to provide this support for the rest of this year and hopefully next year to the extent possible. So if you have LCA data that you want the world to know about and to be able to find it, be it free or be it for a licensing fee, reach out to us and we'll get it done. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Oliver, for the explanation. And before we move to the next section, we promised Q&A. We're a bit tight, have a tight schedule, but we have time for one question that was actually repeatedly asked. Does the conversion service of GLAD only convert the format, or does it also transfer to another nomenclature? And I think, Oliver, you're probably the best person to answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Hasia. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it does actually do nomenclature conversion, but it's still very limited. And I think this is going to be the challenge, not so much for the engineering, but for the community to create these mappings and also to maintain them over time. This is not a one-time thing, but this needs to be evolving. And new environmental footprint version comes out, for example, new LCAA methods, new flows, things have to be adapted. So things change over time all the time. So the real challenge here is that the community sets up a process to maintain this information together so that everybody can profit from it.
Thank you. Any other questions that are asked during the launch and we will not have time to respond live? they will be answered in writing and published together with the recording of this launch on GLAD's website. So don't hesitate to send your questions in. And that's the end of the section on data and the notes, and I'll hand over back to Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassia, and all colleagues in the previous session. That was really engaging, and I think actually the last question was also a very nice bridge to this other section, because Oliver was already saying it's also very much about the community engaging, and this section is precisely about explaining and showing how each of you in the audience can get much more involved and help GLAD also to achieve its vision. So first, I will provide a bit of an overview of how GLAD works and the governance of GLAD, because that will also show you ways in which you can directly contribute to GLAD. So the overall structure that you see in this slide, and hopefully you see that we've heard or we've read that maybe the bottom of the slides is a bit cut off. I'm sorry about that. Actually, most of what you're missing there is the GLAD website, which is extremely important, of course, but hopefully you know it by now. So anyway, in this slide, you can see the overall structure of GLAD, the Global LCA Data Access network, that fits within the overall structure of the Lifecycle Initiative, with which I hope most of you are already familiar as well. So ultimately, GLAD is governed by the steering committee of the Lifecycle Initiative, which is elected by the Assembly. So all these two parts of the diagram of the organigram that you see on the top. And towards the bottom left in your screen, you see the different areas, the different parts of the governance where you can get more involved. In the right-hand side at the bottom, you see the Secretariat, which supports everything and which is hosted by UNEP. This is where, I mean, where we work, the ones that are here based in UNEP. So first, in terms of the areas where you can contribute directly and get more involved, you've already seen you can become a node, of course, if you have one, or if you're creating a database. We've seen also how, I mean, what support is available to help in setting up national databases. So you can actually be connected and become one of the nodes. You can also participate much more actively through the working groups, and that's what we're going to see a bit more in detail right now. And that's actually one of the working groups that deals with nomenclature and probably answers or will be answering to that question a bit more deeply. Certainly, when specific type of work is required, there's open calls for to contract IT development or to develop specific parts of the platform. And in this way, some of the parts of the GLAD that exists today were developed initially by Green Delta, which well, many of you will know as well. Oliver, as you know, is also supporting as part of the administration, supporting the nodes in the connection, and many of the groups are then developing and working in this area. So that's definitely also a place where you can be working. And obviously, I mean, sorry to be blunt, but obviously you can also become a funding partner if you want to help us deliver this mandate much faster. So having said this, we will move on to see some of the working groups. We will also see about some of the members of the community who have been engaging much more, but we will start first with the first working group. And for this, I will gladly introduce our colleague Koichi Shobatake, who is taking a lead in the working group 1 that deals particularly on, not really sure what time it is for you. I think it's very, very late, but thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lawrence. Hello, my name is Koichi Shobatake. It's actually 23 minutes past 11, but it's very nice. Okay. Okay, so I'll be quickly explaining the GLAD Working Group 1, which is the nomenclature working group. So yes. Okay. So nomenclature is a system of names of terms and rules, and I tried to illustrate the current LCA community nomenclature interoperability problem briefly, very briefly and simplified in this animation. So the key point is that we are all using a different set of names. And let's say we have a database A and a database B, and then they can both play a game of LCA, but they haven't been playing it together. So A and B. So with GLAD and we want more data sets. So A and B would like to play together. For instance, a climate change game. But there's one problem that needs to be solved. And so A is labeling the most famous greenhouse gas as CO2 in its database, and it's always waiting for this string CO2. But at the same time, player B is labeling the same greenhouse gas CO2 as carbon dioxide. So it's kind of obvious that CO2 and carbon dioxide are different sequences of letters, and they don't match. So a computer would just come and think that these are two different things. So before A and B can start playing together, the carbon dioxide balls coming from B will have to be converted into CO2. So simply, this is kind of what you have to do with the nomenclature things. So this may be very simple, but actually, is this moving? Ah, there we go. Excuse me. So the problem is that there is so many of these balls because, of course, as everybody knows, the only substance isn't carbon dioxide. There's so many compartments. And also these balls seem to be changing so many times over time. So the real challenge is how to keep these all up to date. So this is the kind of things that we are working on right now. And yeah, there's also many players using different sets of balls in different time sequences. So as a short-term goals, we are trying to build a mapping file between the major elementary flow systems. And also we're trying to do it very transparently, create a tool sets so that we can keep up with this interoperability. Also maintain these differences, keep the mapping file always up to date. With activities, we're doing this maybe once every 1.5 months. We're having these on online meetings, and also sometimes we have some homework, especially for the node owners. We're doing this on a platform of mailing lists. We're also using Dropbox, and we hope to have all these information up on GitHub shortly. As future areas, we're trying to create guidelines for elementary flow systems, also develop interoperability for intermediate flows, and also product categorization. So if you're interested, or if you have a whole list of names that you want to kind of map, make interoperable, please contact the UN Secretariat, and we'll try. We would be very grateful to have you in one of the members. Thank you. I'd like to pass it on to Peter.
Thank you, Koichi. And I'm going to present the working group number 2, the metadata working group. The GLAD application at its core is an application to make lifecycle data findable and accessible such that a user can determine fitness for purpose for their particular application. And so metadata is critical for this function. I'm having trouble. Oh, there, hold on. There we go. Thank you. Any search application extracts information from structured files. In our field, we have several formats and metadata schemas that were designed for different purposes. And the challenge for GLAD is to reconcile these fields in these schemas in the search applications, such that the user can identify data sets that might be most useful. And then the user must determine if the data set is fit for their own purpose or for their own application. The metadata files should define the goal and scope of the original study, and then the user brings their specification for the type of data they're looking for, and through the search application, inputs their specification for their data that they seek, and then manually evaluate if the data are appropriate for their application. They apply the spec through their specification through the application. And it's important that the metadata be complete enough and consistent enough for this evaluation. And as we move forward to enhance the search application, it's going to be important that we're able to build in intelligence and automation to help users find data sets and also evaluate data sets and eventually use data sets. And so converging on shared metadata conventions to support these applications is critical. Okay, oops. And so that's the basic charge of the metadata working group. In the short term, we're continuing to refine the implementation in terms of definitions and reconciling existing schemas to make the search application more effective. And in the long term, we're going to continue to converge on metadata conventions necessary to determine fitness for purpose toward the goal of building in additional intelligence into the search functionality and perhaps ultimately model assembly. And something that's very an interesting perspective on the metadata working group is that the GLAD API really provides a nice beginning of a specification for interoperability. It's an open API, and as it evolves under community guidance, it will provide basically a shared community understanding of what metadata are necessary to determine fitness for purpose that can be built into more automated applications. We're currently scoping activities and soliciting open participation. If you're interested in participating, please contact the UNEP Secretariat. And I'd also like to thank or recognize the work up to this point. And in this GLAD launch, the metadata working group has been led by Andrea Sarath and Bruce Vigan, who have done excellent work in the metadata the metadata work with existing schemas to build the current GLAD application. With that, I'd like to transition to Oliver Kusha to discuss the GLAD developer days.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, the entire GLAD project is a community effort, and also the software stack is largely based on free and open source software, where free is not only as in free beer, but also as in freedom. And we're just really getting started, and there are a lot of things to further improve and develop the conversion, the user interface, everything. And there's a lot of feedback already from the community that we received. So if you are a software developer, or if you have software developers in your organization that want to help us involve this into a true global LCA data interoperability hub, please join us on GitHub. Specifically, we're planning a developer day or a series of sessions very soon targeted at current and potential GLAD software developers. We want to host tutorials on the components of GLAD and how it all works behind the scenes in order to enable new people to get involved and contribute. It's going to be an all online event. The date will be announced shortly. So if you're interested, please just watch our GitHub repository at the URL below, or watch out for the feedback questionnaire after this event, where you can also indicate your interest. Now handing back over to Jens.
Thank you so much, Oliver, and thanks everyone. Thank you, colleagues, for that truly engaging and great overview of how the audience can get more engaged and can participate directly in the evolution of GLAD. Now we will turn to some of our most engaged partners as well, who all of them have a long history of contributing efforts to the Lifecycle Initiative for all of its history, really. And we will see how they are planning or how they are already making GLAD even better. So like Cassia, I will be introducing you one by one. And first, I give, as they say, I give you Ulf Jekyll, head of the division at the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. Ulf, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Laurent, thank you very much. And our government is supporting the work on LCA and the use of LCA for, I would say, more than 25 years now. We even base legislation on that, at least partly, for example, in the field of drink packaging. And we are supporting the Lifecycle Initiative also for quite a number of years. Our intention is that lifecycle assessment is done all over the world to improve products and then services. Only if you do this kind of assessment, then you know how to improve your products and services. We also have set up a database on our own in our federal agency, the Umweltbundesamt. It's called PROBAS, and it's offering data sets for free. Currently, it's under revision, but when the revision is finished, we are happy to provide input to GLAD with this database. The approach of GLAD is very much in line with our aim in this field of life cycle assessment, and therefore we also supported the development of GLAD also from one of our projects with Green Delta. They were mentioned there already. Let me finish with a word of caution, and I can remember that we discussed that in the Life Cycle Initiative quite a number of times. The data quality matters. It matters very much. If data is not fit for the purpose, not useful, it can lead to wrong decisions and also lead to false things you might develop, you might do in legislation and so on. So a sort of quality management is desirable, if not even necessary, also within the GLAD systems. But yes, we support the GLAD system and wish them the system every success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulf, and those were wise words as well, as was of course John. Next in our lineup is Martina Prox from Sustainability Strategy at IFU Hamburg, a member of iPoint system, and I hope I said that correctly, or ePoint.
Wonderful. iPoint is perfectly fine, and thanks a lot. And yeah, we have been supporting and being engaged in the initiative, I think, already since the beginning. And when you asked me when to position myself, I wanted to connect also with PROBAS, We are one of the supporters of the ProVAS revision, so enabling and helping to open up and to update ProVAS to make it available for more is one of our current activities. As iPoint and the maker of Humberto, we totally have and share the vision that enabling data sharing, data collection along global supply chains is key towards our common journey for sustainability. And we see we need more and more primary data, but we will never get 100% primary data. And for wherever we identify we cannot get hold of primary data, we really need to get all data, and also with the information of the appropriateness for the specific use case available via easy search, and then easy downloads and easy integration into applications. And so we see GLAD is a very important step in the journey in making data more available, more accessible, and knowing what is out there. But I can totally link to what Ulf said. Not always it's the quantity. We also need to be able to evaluate the appropriateness, and that is then related to transparency and to quality, and to understand what the purpose of the data when it was created was. So we are proud to be part of that journey, and we will certainly see how we can engage, and some of our developers might join what Oliver mentioned, the development days to learn more and to see how we can speed up the integration there. Thank you.
Excellent, Martina. Thank you so much. And Oliver, since that you have some recruits already, so well done. That was a good part. We follow now with Guy Castellan, a passionate member of the Lifecycle Initiative Steering Committee for a number of years, and the Lifecycle Thinking Guru, I think, in Plastics Europe. So, Guy,
yes, I'm going to raise myself. I like the word of guru. Okay, I'm looking at the screen. Yeah, the background of on the wall of Martina was fantastic. You can see mine is quite good. It's a kitchen. It's convenient. This is why I've passed my confinement time. So in Plastic Europe, yes, you know that we develop LCIs for polymers. We've been doing that for 15 years, like our colleagues from World Steel and other associations. So we're going to update. We have an update program coming. So we're going to update this year polyolefins, polyethylene, polypropylene, also the products from steam cracker and the naphtha too from the refinery, polystyrene, expandable polystyrene. And next year, probably, if we have the money for that, we will update polyamide and probably PBT, a new one, and perhaps PVC. Okay, so we have a lot of, normally we should, again, if we have the money, we will continuously update. So we are happy to have, we usually push all our data in all the, well, popular software like Gabi, like Siva Pro Industrial database, and some of them are distributed in to be adapted to the Ecoinvent database. And we have been, we have at the time of the ILCD network, we have developed a node and also put the data set there with the help of Oliver Kuscher. Because when you're not familiar with that, it's always quite a bit difficult to spontaneously, and we never get the time really. So yeah, and again, he helped me to push the data from the node to the GLAD system. So thank you, Oliver. I think you hear me, and you can hear me. So, and yeah, we are very happy because this is what everybody expects, of course. Not only us, because we can, we produce some data, so we're happy that everybody can use them, of course. and this is a purpose for free. And we are happy for the LCA community because so many times I see the brain of this beautiful LCA practitioners wasted on coping with data format and so on. So frankly, these beautiful brains could be used more for thinking on the matters that they try to model. That will be fantastic. So, and I think GLAD is really brilliant for that. It's a brilliant step ahead. So I will keep on working with you for sure. That's it for me.
Thank you so much for those nice words, Guy. And we're now moving to our last panelist in this session, last but not least, definitely, Eric Miras, who is the Managing Director at PRE, and technically our host today, as we're using PRE's license for GoToWebinar, very kindly offered. So thank you very much for that. And please, the floor is yours, Eric.
Thank you, Lorenz, and it's indeed my pleasure, and not only to speak now, but also to support the GLAD initiative. As a long-standing partner of the Lifecycle Initiative, but also from the early start as a contributor in various roles, from being co-chair of a working group, but also working actively in the initiative, because we realized right from the start the importance of making more data available and accessible and findable. And I think that GLAD is really a great initiative to achieve that. And yeah, it's really important to advance lifecycle assessment because the availability of data is really a key element in scaling up the use of LCA and to bring it to a next level. Because if we can share data and take that as a starting point, we believe that it will really bring down the cost and the effort of generating lifecycle information that can then be used for reporting, for monitoring performance, but also for innovation and target setting. So it will definitely accelerate the use of lifecycle information. And for that, we also think it's important to connect CIMA-Pro to GLAD. And actually, we already started to work on that in a project that's called NorEnviro, and we're working together on that with Norsus, and you already saw their data on the platform. But basically, it's a project to create a Norwegian database based on existing data from all Norwegian research institutes. And in that project, we will connect the CIMA-Pro online platform to GLAD. So we already started to work actively and pragmatically, but we also want to support it maybe in a more long-term way. And there we see also a strong link with another not-for-profit initiative that we started that's called CDLCI, and that's an abbreviation of Community-Driven Lifecycle Inventory that basically aims to facilitate the development of sector and region specific data, and we see a strong link with GLAD as well, and we definitely expect to contribute to the initiative through that way as well. So that's how we see the role of GLAD and our contribution to it. And congratulations, Lorenz, and the entire team for making this happen. And we think that with GLAD, the future for all of us will be a bit brighter. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was very, very useful. And well, together with yours as well, the contributions from all other members of the community, Ulf, Martina, Guy, and Eric. It's one of the downsides of these webinars, obviously, is that if we ask everybody to applause now, to give you a good round of applause, we're not going to hear it because they are muted. But certainly, I would I really want to appreciate all your time, the contribution from all this time, and certainly the contribution that comes ahead. So thanks again, and we'll move, well, before moving to the final, or to the next section of the agenda, which will be the final part, we're really running very, very short of time. So Umaima has been passing me some questions, there were a few questions actually going for the working groups and asking regarding, well, this one was particularly for the nomenclature working group, but it's valid for both. Regarding the working group, how can we contribute in the working group? Well, you just send an expression of interest. And for that, you can follow through the feedback form that you will be receiving after the launch. You can express your interest there, and we'll follow up from there. Normally, when you're not participating in a webinar, you can also just contact us through the website. All the information is there, and the contact information, so you can always get in touch by traditional email, which is very old-fashioned, but usually works. So hopefully that was the one question that we could answer now. There's a few more which are a bit more complicated and will be answered in writing and will be posted online as mentioned before. So now, yes, let's move on to the final section of the launch, and I will not take too much time. I will just like to introduce, I'm really pleased that Hugo Schally, who has already been mentioned a few times, and we've seen him in the previous pictures, because he was the chair of the steering committee of GLAD for several years and really guided the steps and the direction of this ship towards the launch that we have today. So Hugo, who is the head of the Multilateral Environmental Cooperation Unit in DG Environment, the floor is yours to provide us a bit of your words for the vision for GLAD and next steps into the future.
Thank you very much, Laurent, and good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to follow this event and to see so many people I have worked with in the couple of years I was involved with the GLAD project, but also in my capacity as dealing with circular economy in the Commission post that now Emmanuel covers very well. And I have to say that it is very gratifying to see that GLAD has now moved to a more operational stage, because where I am now in the field
Hugo,
of yes,
you may want to put your camera on as well if you want, or if you can.
I tried. No, I tried, but it's.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It appears to be stuck, but the picture you have on screen is much more flattering than the picture you would have from my webcam. But anyway.
Excellent. Sorry to interrupt you. Then please go ahead. Sorry.
When looking at how we interact at the international level on the transition to sustainable consumption and production patterns, on the transition to a green economy, or indeed discussing issues related to resource efficiency and circular economy, the question of data accessibility and the question of how economic operators and policymakers in different parts of the globe can access information and can access comparable and transparent information is actually crucial. And I think that it is ever more important now to have instruments and mechanisms like GLAD to respond to policy requests that come from the international arena, such as relevant resolutions of the fourth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, where in a couple of places very specific calls were made to UNEP on the one hand, but also to member states on the other hand, to apply a life cycle vision, a life cycle approach to policy developments, be it with regard to looking at the benefits of specific SCP economic models such as circular economy, be it in dealing with specific environmental and economic challenges such as plastics, such as chemicals and waste, such as product policy. So I think that there is a very important role for a network like GLAD in contributing to and being a data base for future policy and economic developments. And in that sense, I think that we hope that this will be growing, that additional databases, digital nodes will be joining, and that this will be very much in support of, on the one hand, going towards progress with the advances on sustainable consumption, production, and implementing the SDGs, but on the other hand, supporting the possibility of all jurisdictions globally to profit from the possibilities of international exchanges. So I will take this, what I've heard today, and in close collaboration with my colleague Emmanuel and her team, also to forthcoming international meetings where I hope we will, and I hope that others will too, bear the good services that this network will provide in mind, and see that we can promote the full use of life cycle approaches and life cycle analysis in the global policy arena. So in that sense, extremely interesting afternoon. Congratulations to everybody, but also there is still a lot of work ahead, but I think because GLAD has to prove itself also in the hard light of operational requirements of policymakers and economic operators. Thanks, and back over to you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. That was a very nice contribution and very inspiring, and certainly getting us into the real world, as you said. Now we really have to prove it. So that was very inspiring, and particularly the focus as well on what role GLAD can play in the context of international policy. So now, oh yes, we first need to move one slide, and now it's about the next steps. And you were saying, so what comes next? I mean, yeah, we're launching GLAD today, but now we certainly can see many next steps on milestones for GLAD to deliver on its vision. But first, if you allow me, I just wanted to pause for a second while we still have a bit of time to express my sincere gratitude for the amazing team effort that has brought us here. So it's really a big team, as you have seen across the world, across nationalities. You've heard many accents, which is, I think, great, and it's a good signal. The point is, nobody can deliver this alone, and with words and all, as they say in England, GLAD is still our best hope. It's really something that technologically, I'm sure we can improve things, but it's the spirit also that it's bringing. As Kasia was saying, I mean, we had somebody from Pred reading a statement from Sfera. Come on, that's already a good sign. It is inclusive. We've heard many of the words, right? So it's making the LCA data diversity interoperable. It's a way of finding, exchanging, evaluating LCA data. It's including the diversity, so making the diversity possible as well, in a way, possible and interoperable. But certainly, it's a way of enhancing the use, and as I said, I mean, it's really a big team effort. As mentioned, you've heard many of the voices behind this effort. Not all of them, and I just wanted to pause a second to say that in addition to Oliver, who is already in the UNEP team as well, I would like to highlight Jonatas de Mello. You've heard his name several times. He's also the author and the culprit of many things really going right here, for which I'm really thankful. Claudia Giacovelli, who is not, I think she's actually in the audience, but she went on maternity leave, so she's got some serious things as well to attend to at the moment. And I wanted to recognize especially our intern, Umay Mauzan, whom you've heard the name many times, and she's really made an amazing amount of work in the last few weeks to ensure that actually everything happened. So, these are just a few names. I just wanted to mention some of those that have not appeared also on the screen, because certainly without them, we wouldn't be here. And another point I wanted to make is that I want to think that, like all technological breakthroughs, GLAD is happening or has been happening gradually, and then suddenly we've seen this amazing growth in the number of connections, that things really start working, and you see the funky bubbles in those graphs that are growing and have grown exponentially in the last couple of weeks. And this means that you are connecting, and that's I think super important. Some of you out there can still connect and want to connect, hopefully. So anyway, these were just a few points before I move to the next steps. And what is it that we wish that will come next? And of course, there's many things that are under our control, many things that depend on you, and many things that depend on others as well in the community. So this is a bit of a wish list, and probably it's my own wish list. So sorry if I made this one a bit personal. But certainly, I think one point was already mentioned also by Eric. I think having the connection of GLAD to the LCA software, so you can actually connect directly to GLAD from your LCA software, that would be ideal, I think, from a user point of view. Having a GLAD button, let's call it this way. Having a coherent and comprehensive LCA nomenclature. I think actually many of the questions in the question panel were about this. And we're also working on that. So you will also hear more if you join to the working group on nomenclature, some elements as well coming from the metadata descriptors, but the whole idea of having this cross-trapping nomenclature across inventory and impact assessment, ensuring that there is full coherence and also a global stewardship. And then, of course, increased access to data. We've seen that when data are online, we can actually do wonders with data. And finally, just a personal one, maybe to improve the gender balance in LCA data. We've seen a great gender balance today in the audience. Maybe let's wish that we will get that balance as well in the leading positions of LCA database management. I'm really glad to work with all the colleagues and all the mates, but I think we have to admit it. This is an area where we have to work a bit better. And well, anyway, it's everywhere. So just personal wish. Before we close, can we do please another poll just before you all go to sleep, some of you, or go on with the rest of duties in the rest of the day. So you see here a few questions, and here just for once you can tick all that apply. I think we can already launch this this poll. The idea is, well, what would you be using? Sorry, what would you be doing to enhance data accessibility and interoperability? So this is really about what are you going to do? It's about knowing how you will be contributing from today or from tomorrow if it's too late now. Umaima, I think is the poll. Yeah, the poll is launched and I see some results. Wow, it's interesting because now that you can all vote for multiple options, we see many of the questions. Certainly, I will start using GLAD for data search. That's amazing. Many of you saying that you will be using the GLAD. Interestingly, and a lot of you, 65% at the moment, would love to see the data, the GLAD button. And yeah, 22% joining the metadata or the nomenclature working groups. That's good. We really need more support there. And the important thing is this is open, this is transparent. So you also want to be there. We have 54% of the participants have voted. This is also a moment while maybe the votes continue coming, just to, well, first request another warm round of applause and very loud round of applause, even though probably only your neighbors will hear it. But let's make the neighbors hear it anyway. I would like this applause for all the presenters and all the team that has made this possible. And I say, yeah, while you're uploading, it seems that the votes are not progressing any further. So maybe we can also close it here. Thank you very much for these answers. Please don't go yet. Because first we need to just remind you that actually the first next step is that you're going to receive a feedback questionnaire. Please fill it. It's going to be extremely useful. It's not, you know, just the general questions about, oh, did the connection work, etc. It's actually a feedback that will be useful to help improve GLAD. And also through this feedback form, as mentioned, you can join the working groups if you so wish. Well, tell us any other way in which you can contribute. So that's another important one. Also, just to remind you, hopefully some of you took that selfie while toasting for GLAD. If you didn't take it at the time, you can also take it now. There's no problem with that. And please send it our way. if you want to get into the Hall of Fame. You got the email before, the email that you can send it to for the email for Umaima. So please send them through. We'll make a collage and we'll show how the world was welcoming GLAD when GLAD arrived. So thanks again for all your time. It's time to say goodnight to those in New Zealand and Australia and Japan if you haven't fallen asleep yet, and wish everybody a fantastic rest of the day and well, rest of the week. And please be GLAD. Thanks again and speak soon.
Thanks, Goran. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lorenz. Thanks, everyone.
Congratulations. Bye.